Hi, everybody. I am so disappointed that we lost the end of this school year, especially because I was looking forward to having some really good conversations with you about some of the most important discussion topics for the year. And that has to do with especially Catholic teaching on matters of human sexuality. So I'm sorry we can't have these discussions in person. This is a very important topic, and my guess is you have a lot of questions, and I would say that's good. And you deserve good answers for your questions. So if you happen to have questions that I do not address, you can always send me an email. I'm also going to set up a Google form where you can ask questions anonymously. I'm making this video and others for a couple of reasons. One is I just feel a topic like this, there should be something more personal about it than just the videos that you watch and take notes on from the PowerPoint. But also, there's just a couple of important things that I want to say from the start. So I'll make a few videos. I'll try to keep them short, but I usually fail in that. So this one might be a little longer. Maybe I'll succeed in others that'll be shorter. But today I wanted to talk to you about something that I refer to as that other church. Well, you might ask, well, what other church am I talking about besides the Catholic Church? Episcopalian, Baptist, Lutheran? No. What I'm talking about is something that doesn't really go by the name of a church, but something that functions like a church, like a religious faith. And I'm going to call that progressive ideology. Progressive ideology. Well, what is that? Well, it's not exactly a systematized or organized type of church, but it has a collection of ideas in common. For example, progressive ideology believes that we are in a post-God age. That God is he's no longer relevant to us. The religions that speak about God don't have anything to really offer us anymore. Or even if they do talk about God, people who have this progressive ideology, it's not the God that we talk about from the scriptures. It's a kind of God who's very affirming, maybe gives us some kind of a heaven after this life, but certainly not the kind of God that gives commandments or judges our lives or judges our choices. A second thing about progressive ideology is that it would say that the sexual revolution of the 60s was like the best thing ever. That this just turned everything upside down, out with the old Christian values about sex, in with new, what they would call progressive values, and it's just kept getting better ever since. That's the way they'd think about it. And then thirdly, I would say this, that all the wrong ways of making moral decisions that I've taught you, they would totally embrace. So we've talked about things like making moral choices just based on your gut or your feelings, making decisions just based on good intentions. Remember, we talked about this idea that the end justifies the means, or some people think that it does. Consequentialism, relativism, radical moral autonomy, cultural Marxism, all of those things, progressive ideology sees those things as the right way to make moral choices. And remember what I told you about all those things. What's the one thing it all has in common? No moral object. No moral object, no reference point in reality as to whether what you're going to do is good or evil. Progressive ideology, therefore, is what I call the other church because it functions like a religion and it functions like a church. It has its own faith, its own answers, and its own preachers or evangelists. For example, it has its own faith. Progressive ideology has a lot of ideas that it expects you to take on faith because it can't prove it. So, for example, if someone who regards themselves as progressive does not believe in God and considers that's the progressive idea everyone should be on board with, well, you can't prove there's no God. No one can prove there is no God, right? Or here's another one, that unborn children are not real humans. They're just like, pregnancies that you can just take out and nobody gets hurt. You can't prove that unborn children are not human. I've given you all the evidence. All the evidence goes the other way. We've talked about this. We've talked about the whole hunter in the woods scenario and everything like that. So if people are going to say that unborn children are not really human, what's that based on? Faith. It's a statement they hold to that they cannot prove. Just as if you make the statement that there is no God or that he's different from what people said he was, is something you can't prove. But they just accept it and embrace it all the same. Also, progressive ideology offers answers to the deepest questions of life, the questions that religion is supposed to answer. I mean, that's the whole purpose of religion, or at least one of them, right? To answer our very deepest questions about, for example, what's the purpose of life? What's the meaning of life? How do you find happiness? How do you find fulfillment? How should people treat each other? What is death? What comes after death, if anything? What is right? What is wrong? Or just quite simply, what is human? What does it mean to be a human? See, religion answers these very deep questions, the most fundamental questions that people ask. And progressive ideology wants to say that, no, those old answers from Christianity, no, that's old school. That doesn't work anymore. It says that they've got their own answers and that we don't need religion to answer these questions anymore. We can answer them just by ourselves. So, oh yeah, and also this, progressive ideology also spreads these answers. Yes, it has its own teachers, its missionaries, its evangelizers in its ideas about, for example, morality. Now you might say, well, I've never heard of this. I've never seen a church building with a sign on it, Church of Progressive Ideology or something like that. Probably not. It doesn't really advertise itself as a church. It doesn't have buildings or signs or the kind of organization that churches have. But this kind of belief and ideology, these days it's like woven into the very culture. I mean, for example, when sex education is taught in public schools, they're not teaching it in New York City public schools from the point of view of traditional Christian or Jewish morality about sexuality. No, they're teaching progressive ideology, a different, dare I say, kind of religion that is exactly being taught and propagated in public schools. So also progressive ideology is widespread throughout the entertainment industry. I mean, think of it. When was the last time you saw a TV show where two people who really loved each other went on a date and then he's walking her back home and, he gets to the door to kiss her goodnight and they both decide that as much as they feel for each other that they're going to save sex till they're married because it's something really special. Have you ever seen that? I can kind of guess what is normally seen or what normally happens in TV episodes of that nature. So yeah, it's widespread through entertainment. Progressive ideology, it's what a lot of people would refer to as what everybody knows, right? Everybody knows. The smart, cool people all say this, right? That that you're supposed to have sex by the third date or whatever else they're saying these days. So I think it's important to talk about this because overall, as I see it, this other church of progressive ideology functions like it's my competition. When I was your age, many years ago, there was Christianity. And it's like, okay, here's Christianity or Judaism, take it or leave it. Or maybe you're going to be a bad Christian, but you're still going to somehow think of yourself as belonging to Christianity overall. Well, now it's different. It's not just like Christianity or bad Christianity or nothing. No, you have this progressive ideology which offers itself as an alternative. So people are like faced with a choice. Do you buy into the answers and the faith of Christianity, or do you make a decision to buy into the answers, or dare I say, the faith of this progressive ideology, which functions as a religion? So why does this all matter? As I said to you before, I'm going to start talking about things that are very important because they relate to the gift and the mystery of human sexuality. Why am I doing this? Why am I making such a point of talking to you about human sexuality? Is it because I want to make people feel guilty? Is it because I want to make everybody to conform to the church's doctrines? Is it because I want to just ruin your fun? No, it's really quite simple. I say this with all sincerity. I believe that you guys are really good kids, and I want you to be happy. You're young. You have your whole lives ahead of you. The choices that you make about sex are going to be key to your future happiness. If you make right choices and good choices, the benefits are going to last you a lifetime. If you make wrong choices and bad choices, very sadly, you can open up the door to all kinds of pain that will follow you for a very, very long time. And what is worse is that in addition, it could make you miss out. Bad choices could make you miss out on some of the very best things that life has to offer. I mean, when you look into your future, I know it seems far away, but when you look into your future, do you see yourself happily making a home with a husband or a wife and having your children and raising them and being together as a family? If that's something that you want, if that's something that draws your heart, well, I can help you. I can give you all the answers that you need about how to use God's gift of sexuality. The answers that I give you, they're going to be clear and sensible and helpful, and they come from God himself, who's our creator. But here's something I also do want you to be aware of. Whatever I say, at least in many things that I say, progressive ideology is going to be telling you exactly the opposite. So if I tell you that there's something that you must do to be happy, progressive ideology is going to tell you that I am totally, completely wrong. And if you follow what I tell you, you're going to be miserable. And if I tell you that there's something that you must never do, because it can really damage your potential or your desire for happiness, progressive ideology will tell you, no, this is exactly what you have to do if you want to be happy. And again, in so many of these questions, there is no middle ground. In key essentials, Christianity and progressive ideology totally contradict each other. And the issue here is not about who cares about you more or who really wants you to be happy. Like I said, I sincerely want you to be happy. And I'm sure that the people who embrace progressive ideology would say that they want you to be happy. But what I'm trying to point out to you is that you need to look at the underlying assumptions and the ideas that people have about life and humanity and reality, even before you get to the question of what kind of choices will make you happy or unhappy when it comes to sex. Progressive ideology will say that Christianity has it all wrong, especially, again, when it comes to sex. But don't think that if progressive ideology critiques Christianity, that it's because somehow, scientists discovered something that proved that everything Christianity was saying is wrong. Absolutely not. Progressive ideology says that Christianity is wrong because progressive ideology has its own ideas and assumptions and faith about reality that are different from Christianity. And so it is judging Christianity from its point of view. Progressive ideology is not reality or common sense or science. As I said, it's its own type of religion with its own point of view, with its own assumptions based on a kind of faith, and some people choose to buy into that ideology. So, what I want to tell you is first, do not trust the advice of progressive ideology just because it claims to be scientific or because it tells you things that you want to hear. Look at the underlying assumptions and the ideas and honestly ask yourself if it's really true. I'll tell you, it's not. Second, what I do ask you to do is to listen and trust and choose the way of Jesus Christ and his teaching as it comes to us through the teaching of the Catholic Church and probably all or most Christianity. Listen to what I tell you about what Christianity says about sexuality and not what other people, especially non-Christian or progressive people, say that Christianity says. Listen, think, try to understand, and I'm also going to have to ask you to trust. What I am telling you comes from Jesus Christ. He wants you to be happy way more than I or anyone else wants you to be happy. He died for your salvation. If that doesn't make him worthy of your trust, what else ever could? Listen to him, and he will show you the way.